Let's podcast alongside Joe Giglio. I'm Joe Ovies inside Eford Studios in downtown Raleigh. Thanks to Empire Properties and thanks to Copiers Plus. Check them out online at copiers-plus.com. Print management, document management, get your stuff to the cloud. If anybody can podcast on a Monday, any small to medium-sized business can go to copiers-plus.com. It's that simple. And get a free print assessment.
Get over there. Drew and his crew buy the house over the weekend. Wi-Fi all set up. Printer all set up. Let's go.
Love it. We are going to, or at least I am going to proclaim right now on October 21st, Manny Diaz, ladies and gentlemen, Duke football coach, your ACC coach of the year. Now, I know what you're thinking. Here goes Ovies doing the ACC coach of the year. Really is about an apology without saying we're sorry. We're not going to tell you, hey, man, we thought you sucked or we thought you were going to suck. So here's your coach of the year. It's kind of implied at this point when it comes to a lot of ACC coach of the year voting, both in football and in basketball. No, I'm going to give Manny Diaz the ACC coach of the year, not because Duke is 6-1 and bowl eligible and kind of turning Duke football into a turnkey operation, unlike the other two programs in the triangle, apparently. Who knew? You can get some new coaches in there to just keep that thing rolling over in Durham, right? No, the reason why I'm going to give Manny Diaz the coach of the year is because he looked at Florida State. And on Friday night, he went, you know what? I'm just going to let them fuck up. And if we let them screw around and we just don't do anything stupid, we're going to walk out of there with a win. That was, if you look at the stats, it's a highly unimpressive Duke victory. But that actually hides the fact that Manny Diaz went in that game going, nah, Florida State's offense is so terrible, so messed up that we're just going to go ahead and let this thing cook, and we're going to walk out of there with a win. And that's exactly what they did on Friday night to 6-1, Joe.
Yeah, a couple things. This is the fourth time since 1960 that Duke has started a season at 6-1. That's notable.
That is
right.
Notable. Yeah.
Cutcliffe did it twice, surprisingly, not the year that they won the division, rather in 14 and then again in 15. Here comes the hard part for Manny. It's the finish, right? So those 6-1 teams that Cutcliffe had finished 8-5. Obviously, do your quick math. That means you went 2-4 the rest of the way. 6-1 and 14. They finished 9-4. Fast Freddie Goldsmith actually started 7-0 in 94 and then went 1-4 at the close. So the close is going to be what's important for Manny Diaz here. But two things, and you're going to see this in my new OG newsletter, OG Fans newsletter for tomorrow. There were two things when Manny Davis was hired by Duke that surprised me and you, and I think we were on the same page for this. Yeah. Number one, you had Mike Elko, who was like the X and OE coachiest coach you can possibly be. See what he's doing at Texas A&M right now. And it was jarring, and still is jarring to me, to have, this is the same AD, Nina King hired them both, to think, well, here's one way to be successful. The X and OES coachiest coach in the history of the world to Manny Diaz. Manny is a smart guy. He's a handsome guy. He's got charisma. Okay. One of the things he's always been good at is recruiting. Now, you and I both know Manny, not only from his dad being a mayor in Miami, but also his time at Florida State with Chuck and Bobby Bowden, his time at NC State with Chuck Amato. And then when he was the head coach at Miami, he famously went over to Chapel Hill and they played a game, and Chuck Amato was in his neon, jumpsuit on the sideline. And it was like a living homage to Chuck Amato and bad coaching, the way that Manny's Miami team played. And by that, I mean, they came up under Bobby Bowden. Their thought process and their learning was, it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to have penalties. It's okay to be, footloose and fancy freak because we're so talented that we'll overcome the mistakes. Yes, at Florida State in the 1980s, you could get all the roughing and bullshit late penalties and procedural penalties that you wanted because you were so talented, you were going to overcome those mistakes. But NC State under Chuck Amato in the early aughts and Manny Diaz at Miami in the late teens were not good enough to overcome those mistakes. And both of our thought process was Manny's Duke team is going to play like those state teams, that Miami teams that he had. So far,
turns out no.
So far this year, it's super impressive Because what he's done is he's shown a tremendous maturity and a learning curve from going to Penn State. I'll give this to James Franklin and the credit that he probably picked up there. Their penalties, they're 42nd in the country in penalties. That's super impressive.
Yeah.
Particularly because you're talking about going to a new program. He did not bring a whole new wave of players with him. Yes, he has a new running back and a new quarterback, but he mostly came in there and coached up and took over a program that was in serious transition after losing Elko the way that they did to Texas A&M. 42nd in penalties, and then, of course, the oldest trick in the entire book, 17th in the country in turnover margin. So they're playing smart football. Things I would not have thought I would have said about a Manny Diaz or Chuck Amato team. So that's a hat tip to him. That is me saying to him, congratulations, in all sincerity, congratulations to him for going somewhere. We think about this too. Manny's our age, right?
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, you think about, we think this in terms of college basketball, right? We have a freshman, he does whatever. Then he comes back as a sophomore and we're like, well, he stinks, as if you can't get better, right? I think Joe, now you throw in the stop at Texas where he got fired by Mac Brown.
Yeah.
I think he went and I think he learned. It's because I like the way that they're playing. And you can sit here and say they're 6-1, they haven't beaten anybody. I'm all ears for that. But the truth of the matter is, again, it's only been done 4 times. This is only the 4th time it's been done at Duke since 1960.
Yeah.
And now, again, look at that schedule and you go, well, who have they really beaten? I don't care.
Doesn't matter.
Because they've taken care of business. And that's what's important to me.
That's important to me too. To your point, look, I got no problems admitting when I read situations wrong. And
I think it's important when you say you were wrong or we were wrong about this. And I'm not trying to be like semantical with you right now.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say to you is, and I was thinking about this morning, like this is where we can get better in real time to say at the time when he's hired, here's what his teams have been.
That's what I'm saying.
And if you're expecting them to be different, then that would be awesome. It would be great to see what he has learned from Penn State or his all of his stops since, Texas, let's say his learning curve, or even, because Miami was part of that too.
Sure.
But you can't go back and say, well, you were wrong. No, this is the way his teams had played before.
It's when I say that, to finish my point, you take the information you have at the time. To your point, based on what we had known about Manny Diaz, that's why the hire was so surprising.
Yes.
Manny Diaz was a luxury coach, coaching at luxury programs. So yes, to your point, you coach at Miami. Well, the expectation is we got luxury problems. We have all these recruits. We have all these guys that we have access to. We're going to win a particular way because that's how Miami wins. All right. And yes, there's stops at Florida State. Yes, there's Penn State, which again, luxury problems. That's a Big Ten team with a big time pedigree with access to defensive players. And on top of that, to his credit at Penn State, he even said it when we talked to him at ACC kickoff, the offenses that they were dealing with were tailored to the kind of defenses he was going to run.
Right.
So he was basically morphing to what he needed to do at Penn State. So I'll give him credit there. And the stop at Texas, look, man, you're working with what you got, and sometimes you're the sacrificial lamb. Like this just happened to Seth Luttrell at Oklahoma. Congratulations. The offensive coordinator at Oklahoma got fired over the weekend because, well, things are going bad for Oklahoma right now.
Yeah, Brent Venables is going to get fired by the end of the year.
Him and Lincoln Riley, man. Like
I saw a social media clip from The Hangover, Bradley Cooper.
Yeah.
It just says, here's Texas and Oklahoma calling the Big 12. Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, we fucked up. Which, going back to original points when those teams left, I was super curious. Yeah. I'm not going to act like I don't think Texas is good. I do think they are good.
I think Kirby Smart put the hammer down defensively on Texas. Like it was a little bit of a reminder of, hey.
No. I still run this thing, not the SEC, but the country.
Right. Yeah. Right. I think that was a little reminder for Kirby Smart in the way they played defensively. But back to Manny Diaz. That was the surprise. That's what I have no problems admitting that I got wrong, that the information that I had at that time with Manny was luxury programs with luxury problems. Duke is not a luxury program.
No.
Duke is you have to, as you like to say, build a different mousetrap if you're going to win with Duke football. And we give a lot of credit to Nina King for trying to build it a little bit differently with Duke football.
Also understanding the NIL era. I mean, that was the primary motivation for her hire. Like she could sit here and she could call me every day and be like, hey, remember when you thought I couldn't hire someone because, they needed to be like super X and O-y? Well, That's not where college football's going, sir.
So back to Manny Diaz and adapting to what you have and how you have to win, why I give him a lot of credit and why I think he does deserve ACC Coach of the Year, regardless of the fact that they're 6-1, is the fact that he looked at that game against Florida State and said, we don't have to get cute here. We don't have to do anything extraordinary to beat this Florida State team, even though historically they're 0-22 going into the game. He went, no, they're terrible on offense. Somewhere DJ Uyunglele is going, oh, so I was the problem apparently. No, I don't think I was, guys. I mean, I saw Florida State wide receivers making business decisions against Duke. Think about that. A lot of drops in this game, and some of that was related to business decisions.
I'm going to say you're awarding the Coach of the Year hardware just a little bit too soon, in part because I think you're going on old voting math.
Fair.
Now we have new voting math.
Fair.
And it's going to be hard. And I know we don't like to do this. We, the collective we, the royal we. I know we don't like to do this.
Oh, come on. Do it. Do it. Say it. Yes.
Clemson was 4-4 in the league last year.
Yes.
They were dog shit in the league last year.
Dabo ain't getting it. I know the math is different, but Dabo is not getting it.
They're going to go 8-0 in the league. I don't know how you ignore that.
Because it's Clemson. They're back to doing what they should do. The same reason why Roy Williams was ignored, why Mike Krzyzewski was ignored.
The second part of that, of course, our guy, Mario Cristobal, who can't read a clock, they were 3-5 in the league last year. So I think it's going to be really hard to have those two coaches show up in Charlotte. If they do.
Well, they will. We'll get to that.
If they do.
We'll get to that.
It's going to be really hard to have those two coaches show up in Charlotte at 8-0 and go, well, let's give it to Manny at 5-3. Again, that's just the old voting process.
Well, let's see. Duke's rest of the schedule before we get to the sports phone. The real test, and I don't see them winning these games, SMU and Miami. If they can weather that, the rest of their schedule is very manageable with a road game at NC State, hosting Virginia Tech, and then closing out the year against Wake Forest. So I see 2 more losses, 3 more wins on Duke's schedule the rest of the way, given how they're playing.
You say they beat SMU this week?
No, they lose to Miami and SMU.
Yeah. They're going to beat Virginia Tech at home.
I think they're going to beat Virginia Tech at home.
You're saying Super Bowl. Well, they're going to pop in either the state or the VT game.
Yes.
They will pop in one of those games.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I agree with that.
Okay.
So, I mean, you're talking about worst 8-4 for Duke in a year where we were thinking, can they get to bowl eligibility?
Right.
That would be a great year. No shame in winning 4 or 5 games.
So inside every Duke fan, there are 2 wolves. I'm sorry, that's for NC State. Inside every Duke fan, there are 2 devils. Let's see which ones we got.
919-444-2211. Call the OG Sports phone and curse or don't.
We really do get 2 types of Duke football interaction. Let's go to the first one.
Hey, guys, this is Ben from Bull City Coordinators calling in. I just want to give a shout-out to the Blue Devils after their big win over Florida State. Big congrats to Duke's best offensive weapon, which was all the Florida State miscues, penalties, and collective shooting themselves in the foot. It was glorious. But on a serious note, Manny Diaz, 6-1. After 7 games, Duke is bowl eligible, and for the first time in program history, beat the Seminoles. I mean, hey, is Manny Diaz him? Anyway, guys, keep up the good work.
I don't know. I don't want to go so far as to call him, but Manny Diaz has done a great job. All right, here's the other kind of Duke football interaction we get.
Well, I doubt it, but maybe now you'll put some respect on Duke's name when it comes to football. I know how you are. You're both too busy slurping Carolina and talking about that dumpster fire, or you're too busy slurping the Wolfpack and their mediocre football program. Duke's legit. Deal with it. Go Duke!
Talk your shit, man. Talk your shit. Absolutely love that.
That's what it's about.
Speaking of slurping, are you ready to slurp the Wolfpack, as the sports phone caller said?
Sure.
I think there's 2 conversations. There's Cal.
Oh man,
Cal's 0-4.
Born on the wrong star,
dude.
Man. These losses by what? 10 total points?
9 total points. I think it's 9 total points.
Wild.
So 0-4 in the ACC. All those losses, they should have beat Florida State.
Absolutely,
they should have beat Miami.
They should have beat
State. But State, I was a week
5, 6, 8, 9 points. Yep.
I was 2 weeks premature with the Dave Doran correction, the Dave Doran reset, the Dave Doran talking points of this is a resilient group and we're going to fight. I know you're already rolling your eyes. I thought the Wake Forest game was going to be the reset, and it should have been, but we don't need to rehash what happened in the fourth quarter with a 10-point blown lead.
We're on to Cincinnati.
The Syracuse game was a clear identification of they've got some serious problems on the offensive line, but they do have something in CJ Bailey. And I do think, given how things went against Cal on Saturday, what we can say about CJ Bailey continues to be true. I have thoughts on CJ Bailey and how Dave Doran has handled this whole entire thing. That's a separate conversation. But I really do think you might look at NC State football and you might look at their record and you're going, Ovies, Giglio, you told us NC State shit was dead. Right? You told us NC State shit was dead.
It still is.
But look at this football program. Look at what happened. Look at the expectations. Look at their record. How can you sit there and tell me NC State shit is dead?
Oh, okay.
Well, how many games has NC State won, Joe, that have come on the back of a missed field goal by the opposition?
Yeah, I was going to actually pull up the Bambard miss from 2016 just to give people some context. But since that 33-yard miss at Clemson, NC State has had 4 football games, determined by a field goal in the last 2 minutes of the game.
Now, to be clear about these field goals, these are not 55-yarders.
I'm about to give you the distances.
Okay.
So Cal missed a 28-yarder.
Come on, man. Come on.
ECU in the opener of 22 missed a 41-yarder at home, but that same kicker had made a 50-plus the year before to beat Navy. UNC missed a 35-yarder, and Liberty had a 39-yarder blocked. So since then, there have been 4 games determined by a kick in the final 2 minutes. NC State is 4-0 in those games.
And you said the NC State shit was back.
The longest attempt was 41 yards. Yeah. That doesn't even include the game where Chris Dunn made 100 field goals against Florida State, because none of them.
What year was that?
That was also 22. He basically beat Florida State because remember they had Jack Chambers running the single wing.
Yes.
So that doesn't count, but he did make essentially a 53-yarder to beat Florida State in that football game. It just so happened to come with 6 minutes left in the game. So since the Bambard miss, they're 4-0 in games that have been determined by a late kick. That's kind of crazy if you think about it.
That is further proof that NC State shit is dead. Thank you very much. I rest my case. Now, look, all jokes aside, when it comes to NC State, you knew, given Dave Doran's track record, that this season was not going to spiral out of control. It simply was not. I know you're making a face. I never believed it was going to spiral out of control. They're going to claw their way back into some interesting games and whatnot. And this Cal game was certainly that. Because remember, I had circled the Cal game as the one that NC State was going to lose this season.
That's some Law of the Wolf in personification for you,
exactly,
isn't it?
Right?
Everyone going into the year is like, they got these 2 games, but you got to be careful of that Cal game.
That Cal game's the one. They're going to trip up, cross-country trip, all this other crap.
Like, no, watch this. We'll lose to Syracuse and Wake at home.
Right.
And then beat Cal.
It's the Syracuse game is whatever. I think Syracuse is a good team. It's the Wake game that is like, what the hell? It's the Wake game. It's always the Wake game. So they go to Cal, they do this. Now, 2 things about this and why I think Dave Doran's going to be back in his bag after this week. They go into the bye week, get everything reset.
That is helpful.
Maybe they'll finally unload the entirety of the playbook for CJ Bailey, which I know is a thing
or not. Just let him do what he's doing.
Or there is that, right? And we've been asking the question, who's going to step up defensively? Well, the answer is right there. It's Davin Vann. He continues to be the guy who disrupts. And they win that game because of his fourth quarter play when they gave the ball back there at the end and they had a nice defensive stand after the missed field goal, right? But CJ Bailey in particular, and this is the thing that I'm going to be really, really curious about, not just the rest of this season, but how things get handled in the offseason. I want to be really, really clear when I say this. After Grayson McCall went out with the initial injury and they put CJ Bailey into some tough spots, I think most people could recognize that there was something there with CJ Bailey. But in Dave Doran, typical Dave Doran, Robert and I fashion, very conservative. They don't want to just let the true freshman cook. And I know this, NC State hasn't had a true freshman quarterback since Phillip Rivers. Cool. It's a completely different era of football. And sometimes you got to pull the cord in case of emergency and just coach the team you have. So When they put Grayson McCall back in the Wake Forest game, I was perplexed, absolutely perplexed. Not because of the injury and not because of the possibility he could hurt himself again. Nobody could have expected what we saw in the Wake Forest game with Grayson McCall. No, my initial thought was, why? Because initially we had already seen enough from Grayson McCall to give you an idea that offensively things weren't really there. Things weren't really connecting. But you could see something with CJ Bailey. And I think this game maybe is a reward for that. Maybe some of his play in the Syracuse loss shows you that there's a reward for that. You know, like the fumble in the Syracuse game to me was on the offensive line. Does he need to get rid of the ball quicker? Yeah. I get it. He's a freshman. Go with some of those mistakes. But as we've talked about with the offensive line, it is porous, absolutely porous. So to have that comeback win just builds more for CJ Bailey. And I think if you're looking for anything optimistically or anything to look at optimistically for NC State is that. And it does bring up larger conversations. I know you and I have had about how Dave Doeren has gone about the quarterback position. Maybe, because he's a relatively young guy, you find new information, you adapt. Maybe after the last 2 years, you stop playing this game of going and getting an older quarterback in the portal. Maybe that goes away because of the COVID years finally vanishing. But at some point, Dave's going to have to look at CJ Bailey and think, if I'm a development guy, if that's my entire shtick, well, then it has to go beyond just the defense. And maybe because you have to build things differently, invest in the young guy and see what you have. And I hope going forward that that's what we see with CJ Bailey, because I'm thinking about next year already.
Oh, as you should be.
Thinking about next year with CJ Bailey. Can you use this as a springboard to truly have a dynamic quarterback again for the first time in a long time at NC State?
Yeah, I mean, the two highest paid players on their team are Grayson McCall and Kevin Concepcion.
Yeah.
And I think obviously, you don't invest in a quarterback, you invest in CJ Bailey.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to go into the portal, so there should be a rate there that helps you. And I think you let Kevin Concepcion go. I think you let him go to the highest bidder next year in the SEC.
Okay.
I understood why they brought him back this year. It made sense. He was outstanding as a freshman. But there's such a thing as replacement level. Again, if the Kansas City Chiefs can get rid of Tariq Hill, you can let go of Kevin Concepcion. You've already brought in players who are more than capable of making plays, as we saw in this game with the receivers, who finally were able to show out in this game because in part you left them on the field.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's a big part of this too. But, you know, I mean, Justin Joe Lee is a dude. I like the way that he plays. You know, they have guys who can make plays. You just have to leave them on the field and let them do it. Hollywood Smothers, you know, is another one of those guys where it's like, man, we got Jordan Waters because he ran crazy against us. Awesome.
Cool.
That's a great memory. Now let's let that go and that's the next position to move on from, and let Smothers and Raphael just play, because I don't understand some of their personnel decisions that they make.
That's the frustration, I think, from NC State fans, is that you can see some clear talent, but they get locked in on certain things rather. And this is a history. This is why Dave Doeren got mad at you with your yellow pad.
Sure. And this is all easier said than done, by the way, not in terms of who to play.
Sure.
But just say, but sitting here going, well, yeah, we're just going to bring CJ Bailey back. You don't know what the mom's going to say. You don't know what the dad's going to say.
No.
You don't. Hey, by the way, Miami wanted him at the end. Well, Miami's about to lose Cam Ward.
Mm-hmm.
Miami's got a shit ton of money. We already know this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So these are the kind of things, like, it's almost like you got to go to him now and be like, hey, you're my quarterback next year. You got to start working on that deal now. Kind of like we talk about with quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yes.
Don't let it get to that contract negotiation. Don't let Miami come in here and be like, hey, you know what would be awesome? You come play here. You play in front of your mom. We just won the ACC, or we did whatever. We went to this, but we made the playoff, right? I think it's safe to say Miami's going to be in the college football playoff this year,
unless the bottom falls out from them. But
like,
anyway.
so can you see all those wheels spinning right now, right? So that's why I say it's easier said than done. And to your point about development and retention and finding the players, Dave, that's never been Dave's problem.
It's never been the problem.
And so that's what also makes the last 2 years with the quarterback, you know, chasing the dragon a little bit there, if you will. So I'll be interested to see what they do. The week off comes at the right time for NC State. I say the right time, but this is all just an effort to get to 6 games, which I've made the argument in the past. If Dave can finally prove that his basement is better than 4 wins or 1 in the ACC, that is actual improvement.
Let's take a journey with NC State fans, shall we?
919-444-2211. Call the OG Sports Phone and curse or don't.
All right, let's go to the first sports phone call we got, like right when that game was played.
Yes, it's 5:15. State just took we had a lead, and then Dave Doran does what Dave Doran does. We need to fire Dave Doran, leave him in California. I would say get rid of Anah, but, whatever. I think he'd do better if Dave wasn't there. I'm just so done. I'm done.
The journey of a State
Please
fan.
tell me he called back.
He never actually called back, but we did get this.
Hey, Joe. A win's a win. I'll take it. It's just nice. I've been complaining about it all year. It's just nice to see the team show a little bit of grit and get stuff done when by every metric of this season, they should have lost. I think it'll be good for them moving forward. God bless you, Cal. Go back.
All right, I think you got another one here.
Hey guys, Scott in Wake Forest. NC State beats Cal, never in doubt, right? But hey, good for Dave Doran to win the game he wanted to win, the way he wanted to win. Defense stepped up when it needed to be. Offense did barely enough to win the game. Hey, that's a Dave Doran special. Go Pack.
We can't sell Dave Doran special shirts, can we?
I don't know. You might send us a cease and desist. I don't know. I think
we can get away with a DD special.
We could do that.
A Diamond Day.
Tell me something good.
Woo, baby. Wolfpack got the W. Woo, baby. 4-4. Doran's got it figured out. Team's on the straight and narrow path. We're going to take out Stanford. We're going to take out Duke. We're going to take out Georgia Tech. And then we're going to beat those pussies down there in Chapel Hill, baby. 8-4. Here we come. Woo!
Okay. That's like I said, the journey of a Wolfpack fan.
Housekeeping.
Big thanks to Enovana. Check them out online at enovana.com. Green Cleaning Solutions.
If you have mess inside your mansion or trash in your cabana, get it green clean with Enovana.
As Giglio mentioned, we got OG fans. It's over at ogtrianglemedia.com. For as little as $13 a month, you get premium podcast and newsletters. You can save money if you buy for the year, which is sweet. So he's got a newsletter coming out. Brownlow will write about the Panthers today. We also have those premium podcasts. We have the OG Mailbag, which drops every Friday, and the ACC Panic Room with me and Lauren Brownlow. So all that is at ogtrianglemedia.com. Speaking of the podcast, by all means, this is the occasional reminder. If you're new to the podcast, you're enjoying the podcast, obviously the easiest way to help us is to support those who support us, our corporate champions. Go support our corporate champions. But you can also go a step further by rating us on your favorite podcast platform. That helps with discoverability. Leave a review if you like what you hear, even with the cursing. So 5 stars only, positive vibes only. There's a reason why we sell that t-shirt. 5 stars only, positive vibes only. Speaking of apparel, Homefield Apparel's got what you need. Head on over to homefieldapparel.com. Use that promo code OG24 today. You'll save 15% off your order. Josh and the crew over there do an amazing job with pop-ups because it's really about college football community with Homefield. As we saw with the Sports Podcast Festival, people are united by this dumb game we all enjoy called college football, right? And they've got the throwback-inspired stuff on really incredible, comfy hoodies and shirts. In fact, I was wearing the just a Homefield athletic department hoodie this weekend for some hockey. Kept me warm, super, super comfortable. I'm all in. So check out homefieldapparel.com.
Congrats to Josh and his dogs and Adam.
Yes.
Bracer. Georgia, my corporate champions are very happy with you because they're damn good dogs.
They are.
But if you could stop losing me money, I would
that be helpful?
Very appreciative of that.
Fair enough.
You know what I did last night though? Speaking of there was like a whole light bulb that went on in the Giglio brain yesterday.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes was an underdog yesterday.
Yeah.
Stubborn Joe was like, "You're finally gonna get this one right."
No, you're not.
I was.
Oh, you were right.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry, I misunderstood.
Autoplay. Mahomes
Perfect.
as a dog.
Perfect. Speaking of our corporate champions being happy, I mean, Matt Davis over at State Farm's got to be happy. I mean, Cooper Flags doing highlight dunks already against Julius Hodges'
Looks
Lincoln
good.
group, right? Looking good. Duke's obviously good.
Hey, Cooper, you look good.
You can save money. Just go to insuregarner.com or theoginsurance.com or call directly 919-779-8277. You are insuring your home. You like your home. But, maybe you're looking to upgrade. Maybe you're looking for more land. I mean, any number of things that would cause you to go, you know what? Love this house, but it's time to do something else. Well, that's where Hometown Realty comes in. Check them out, myhtr.com. You can buy and sell with confidence. You're leaving money on the table if you're taking one of those guaranteed offers. Don't do that. Sell your house with Hometown Realty and get the value of your home. Again, that's myhtr.com. And you can go to wh.lawyer for our friends over at Whitaker and Hamer, attorneys and counselors at law. They can handle simple things like closing of a house, right? A refinance or whatever it is. But you might have some legal needs for your personal reasons or for your business reasons. And Whitaker and Hamer can help you out. Again, that's just going to wh.lawyer. Again, that's wh.lawyer. Let's go to the NFL, where we are contractually obligated to talk about the Carolina Panthers, right?
Yes.
What's the point, man? I would like to give the Panthers a lot of credit for once again letting me know, indicating to me early, don't bother. Just don't bother. Got allergies or something?
Yes.
That's right. There's fall allergies. Taking that Claritin?
What's the one you?
Flonase?
Flonase.
Yeah, you probably need to double down. That's what I do.
Yeah.
I do the double dose. Do the Claritin in the morning and the Flonase at night.
One a night.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
That's a pro
I gotta
move.
go back to the morning one.
That's a pro move right there.
No, I was ecstatic watching the Panthers on Sunday. Hit the music.
Okay.
Tell me something good.
Actually hit me at 1:00 when it was Minnesota against the Detroit Lions.
Okay.
Do you know the number one team in defensive value over average?
I do not.
It's the Minnesota Vikings.
Huh.
They have the best defense. Effectively, what I'm saying is the Minnesota Vikings have the best defense in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the end of the 22 season when the Minnesota Vikings were in the playoffs and getting urinated on by, of all people, Daniel Jones and the New York Giants? So what I'm getting at here is, yes, the Panthers defense is atrocious. Yes, you should be down in the dumps. And yes, I understand your team hasn't made the playoffs in a really long time. But I keep trying to stress this. It doesn't take long. Just not even 23 months ago, the Vikings were giving up 431 yards to Daniel fucking Jones. They're the reason that the Giants paid Daniel Jones. Their atrocious defense is the reason the Giants are as bad as they are to this day.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're the Panthers, all you got to do is look around the corner and think about it. What has Minnesota really done? They hired Brian Flores. And they haven't made that many significant changes in personnel to their defense. It's not like they went out and signed Lawrence Taylor and Chris Jones and Ronnie Lott. Do you see what I'm saying?
You know what?
You're not that far away.
I'm just going to let you cook.
If the Vikings can make this epic turnaround with seemingly very few ingredients, you can do the same thing. I have faith.
All right. Thanks, Rocky. If I can change, if the Vikings defense can change,
the Vikings
you can change.
defense, which has unleashed a scourge on the greater tri-state area that is Daniel Jones, can change, then you can change. And quickly, I might add. You
Fair
can do
enough.
it too.
Fair enough.
Tell me something good.
I mean, say what you want about the Bryce Young situation, and Andy Dalton's shine has been diminished since that Raiders game. It continues to just that bump just continues to go away. Hey, you know what? I'm going to tell you something good. At least you didn't compete against yourself and signed Deshaun Watson to the most ridiculous NFL contract in the history of the NFL. He popped his Achilles. You see? Did you see the replay?
The odds of him ever playing in the NFL again are 0.0.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It was bad. It was bad. But what's worse and it's bad because they were booing him, and Myles Garrett had to come out and talk about how like, oh, he's been an upstanding citizen and all this other stuff. It's like,
You
sure about that, dude? Like, I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
Forcing people to grope you is not upstanding.
Not great. So it's an ugly scene in Cleveland, and it's made it even uglier by the fact that they got this dumbass contract that they gave him, fully guaranteed. And if they were to cut, like, he's there for the next 2 years. He might.
He's on the books.
He's on the books, but like, if you cut him though, like Pro Football Talk, Florio got into the cap implications. It is like a Russian doll of you're screwed. Okay. Just the further you go.
Because who else would screw up the salary cap that doesn't really exist other than an inept franchise like the Cleveland Browns?
So there you go. Tell me something good. You're not as inept as the Browns. Say what you want about David Tepper. He is not Mr. Flying J. Okay. So you got that going for you. By
the way, after going to a Buc-ee's, I don't think did we talk about my Buc-ee's?
No, we have not talked about your Buc-ee's experience.
After going to a Buc-ee's, like, man, I would be embarrassed to have made the money off of Flying J's that the Cleveland owner did.
Fair enough.
Sarah, I'm serious.
For my guy Hogwood, how can Handsome Dave spin some positivity after this one? Maybe it's some sort of like, it's always darkest before dawn type quote, or it gets worse before it gets better. This was at halftime. Handsome Dave was actually asked about the embarrassing performance against Washington by Joe Person of The Athletic. And super positive Dave came out in this situation.
Is there a level of embarrassment that comes with a loss like that?
I'm proud of our guys. I'm proud of the work that we do. So for me, I never go to that place. For me, it's about honoring the guys that are there, that try their butts off, in practice. And I'm proud of that, but it's got to show up on game day, and we can have great weeks of practice or whatever it is, but the carryover and the mentality, that part needs to be consistent for 4 quarters.
Got to honor the guys that work their butt off, Joe.
Sure, buddy. Yeah, everybody works hard, man. It's not just you. 125-24 now. They've been outscored in the first half of their losses.
Yeah, it's brutal.
27-0. I mean, it's almost like, hey, what are some bad things that happen when you get down really early? Well,
this
maybe avoid getting down 27. And then Andy Dalton with the Yarrow Yepremian.
That dump off was which we'll get to in a second, because I wanted to say this. Like, not only, positive Dave's going to be positive Dave. That's fine. I'm not going to knock him for it. That's his mindset. That's what got him here. It's cool. Whatever. I'm not going to yuck his yum. No, but I do have a problem.
There's a time and place for it. That's not the time and place for it.
What I find more just rolling my eyes worthy, we've already hit you don't see what we see in practice. And we've had some really good practices this week.
Because you're practicing against your horseshit defense.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like, at some point, you got to, we were really good with the process, and they were working their butt off. To your point, they all work their ass off, guys. So don't give me this business stuff. We just got to take what we do in practice and take it to the game. Maybe what you're doing in practice isn't what you need to be taking to the game, because the results aren't there. Now, about Andy Dalton. In any other circumstance, we have seen the diminished returns of Andy Dalton with the Carolina Panthers. Okay. And that interception, you bring up the Gara Yepremian, just in that situation, dude, you got to just ground the ball. Was
he trying to?
No, he was trying to dump it off. I think it was maybe to Chuba. Off the top of my head, I can't remember now. So he was asked about Dalton's play and Bryce Young getting in late and what that means going forward. And I thought this was curious.
Did you consider going to Bryce any earlier?
After the last drive, after the touchdown drive, if we'd have got the defense off, we'd have put Bryce in, and hopefully to get a couple of series there, just get him out there to play. These are those opportunities to do it, and unfortunately, we didn't get off the field, so we were just relegated to that last drive.
You committed to Andy for next week?
Yeah, committed to Andy.
Is there a point, though? 4 straight losses for him. I know it's not all his fault, but is there a point, though, where you got to find out what's right you got?
Right now, it's hypothetical. We got to just get prepared. We got to look at this film, get ready for the Broncos right now, and Andy will be playing next week.
He had dirted that first interception. Looked like they hit.
Yeah, he certainly could have. There was a guy in the area, and that's a play right there where he puts it in the dirt. We go to the next down, hopefully convert it on 3rd down, and then give us a chance to score a touchdown. And if not, we're efficient there, come away with points right there, and we're playing a normal football game.
Playing a normal football game. They have not played a normal football game, but sure, man. Whatever you say. Whatever you say.
I'm worried about Lauren next week. Sean, remember we had talked about Dabo being nice to Tony Elliott.
Yeah.
Sean Payton ain't coming in here.
Oh, no.
And going to be nice to anybody.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Now, there was one other thing that I thought was curious of how bad things are in Charlotte. And maybe this meant nothing. Maybe this didn't mean anything. Maybe it was a scheduled tweet. It is what it is. Everybody's doing countdowns, right? But as that game's wrapping up, and it's ugly, I see this from the Hornets. 3 days to tip off. Hive mentality. And people just please win some games. Please save the entire city. All this other kind of stuff.
Oh,
please
my
save
God.
the city.
Okay.
Save us. Save us. Save us. Now, was that done on purpose? Was that bad timing? It was probably bad timing, but it did get me wondering, what are the Hornets up to? So I finally set up my new phone and I'm like completely out of sorts because I've rearranged things. When I get a new phone, I completely start over.
You do?
Just start over, new phone.
Interesting.
I don't go and I don't transfer all my data. It basically it basically allows me, because most of the stuff is already saved in the cloud.
Oh, okay.
Right.
I'm like, what do you do with like your photos and stuff?
Oh, I dump those off onto my computer, my home-based computer. Right.
Okay.
So anyway, usually what I do is I just start fresh with a new phone because it basically allows me to cull apps. Like I didn't need this app. I wasn't using this app, right? Like what am I actually using? So anyway, DraftKings, I'm using that. So I had to re-download it and use my FaceTime and all this other kind of stuff. And I'm looking at the Hornets. They got their season opener against the Houston Rockets.
Yeah.
Right now, money line to win at Houston, plus 220, according to DraftKings. Now, I was looking at the futures. Not a lot of people are high on the Hornets to win the championship. Not very high on that.
Championship?
Yeah. But they can make the playoffs.
The Celtics are going to win the championship. It's the year of boring. Chiefs, Celtics. Boring.
In Charlotte.
Georgia.
In Charlotte.
Boring.
It comes down to, can you at least just be respectable?
Yeah.
And I don't get those odds. And there's no like plus 120 to be respectable. That doesn't happen in the DraftKings app.
You can get them to make the playoffs.
But you can get them to make the playoffs, which I think they might be able to do. So a little optimism coming out of Charlotte.
Let me try to help you a little bit on some things that
you're the NBA master.
Used to be.
You're all about the quarters.
Used to be.
Which you can do in the DraftKings
past tense.
So anyway, the NBA season is finally back, and you can get going on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. So you can go with like total threes. I like having fun with the weird parlays, like the single game parlays, or a multi-game parlay where like this guy's going to hit a bunch of threes and this guy's going to hit a bunch of threes, all that kind of stuff. It's all there for you at DraftKings. And if it's your first time, use the promo code OG24. New customers who bet $5 will get $200 in bonus bets. Again, that's code OG24 for new customers. You'll get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. So what do you got for me?
So if you go under regular season wins, they're projecting DraftKings is not very high on the Charlotte Hornets at 30.5. So you could just take the over of that at your basic minus 110. Or if you're like super optimistic, you can go up to 33.5 and get plus 190 just to win 34 games. That's still a losing record, sir. So that feels like pretty good value to me.
Still, I like how you put that. It's still a losing record.
Still a losing record,
but that's where we're at right now.
Not as bad.
Fair enough.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball.
And the lightning round brought to you by Sam Jones Barbecue. Check them out in downtown Raleigh. If you are new to the area and you've heard all about Eastern style North Carolina barbecue, I'm going to tell you what Sam Jones, Skylight Inn, the history with Sam Jones did for me when I was having a hard time grasping Eastern North Carolina barbecue. I had Sam Jones. I had Skylight. I had that recipe with the crackling mixed into the pork, letting the smoke do the work. It clicked, and it can click for you over at Sam Jones. Now, it goes beyond that. They got catering.
I was going to say, they have
great sides, all that fun stuff.
They have turkey there, which is phenomenal.
Yes.
And I was thinking to myself, when would I possibly want turkey? Oh, yeah. They have a Thanksgiving catering package. So check it out. It's samjonesbbq.com.
All right, Joe, I have the question for you. Is Brock Purdy a game manager or a game changer? You ready to have that conversation again?
Well, that's weird. Brandon Ayuk got hurt.
Yeah.
Christian McCaffrey might never play again.
Yeah.
So you're down to what? Kittle and a banged up Debo.
Mm-hmm.
And they lost.
Meanwhile,
that was the easiest, freest money in the history of money.
But it goes beyond that. It goes beyond that because it's not like the Kansas City Chiefs are running at 100% on offense either. Okay.
Oh, no. I had to do a double take, wipe my eyes. Was that Kareem Hunt?
Yes. Yes. Yes, it was.
And looking really good, by the way.
So when it comes down to, all things being equal, two quarterbacks dealing with a whole rash of injuries on the offensive side of the ball, two great coaches, by the way, and Andy Reid and Kyle Shanahan. This is not a coaching mismatch, in my opinion.
No.
It comes down to, who's the guy who can carry a team and who's the guy that needs everything to be running on time? I know. Let's go Patrick Mahomes. And sure enough, that's how that game, it was a bit of a slug early on when I switched it over because the Panthers were trash. It played out the kind of way that I thought it was going to play out. Brock Purdy needs all that stuff to go up against a defense like that.
Sure.
And as much people wanted to bang on Cam Newton and be like, well, what have you done, Cam? Cam was absolutely right last year when he described game changer versus game manager. And this game was proof concept. All things being equal, Purdy needs all of this to work. And the Niners, man, look, injuries are fickle. You don't know what's going to happen. And
sure you do. They lost the Super Bowl last year.
And I'm sure it's one of those things when they look back at last year with the Super Bowl, they're going to kick themselves because, man, are you really going to have a true kick at this again, given where you are?
No.
Injuries and everything else.
No.
So that's tough, man.
This could be another lightning round item if you'd like.
Okay.
I was up early on Sunday and was watching the Patriots and the Jaguars.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been trying for the life of me to decide, are we punishing England by giving them these awful football games?
Yeah.
Or is England really playing another level of chess on us by saying, no, come here, showcase your version of football, and the whole world will now see how really kind of uninteresting it is compared to the real football. They even played the game at Wembley Stadium, for God's sake.
I know.
So I think it's all of this time, I thought it was the NFL putting one over on England.
No.
But now I think it's the long game of England saying, no, really, you guys get your kicks out of this, like the penalties.
They're going to get more of this, by the way.
You're watching the Jaguars 2 weeks in a row.
Goodell keeps floating the idea of bringing a Super Bowl over there. So
sure.
Okay.
Sure.
I think they want to put a full division over there. I think that's where we're headed.
Given the success they're having in Germany in particular.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's what they
something
want.
like that. But it's like, I look at this, Joe, and I'm like, this is punishment. It's punishment from me.
Fair enough.
Because you're like asking fans to wake up because you remember
you don't have to watch those games.
No, you don't,
man.
But I mean, you have a fantasy team. You have gambling.
I do.
You got all this. You do.
I totally forgot about it.
You have a fantasy team. You have gambling, and quite frankly, I'm always up. So
Yeah,
if you're gonna do something at 9 o'clock in the morning, guess what? It's my prime time.
That's fair.
So I'm sitting there watching this game, going, American football is. If this is the best we have to offer,
it's trash.
It's not very good.
It's trash. Speaking of trash, I couldn't come up with a pithy bowl name for this last night on Sunday Night Football between Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson, other than these are two aging quarterbacks that have had their time, but now are on two franchises that for some reason seem to be coddling them, all things being equal. Now, the Jets are worse than the Steelers and Russell Wilson. And they booed Russell Wilson early in this game because he just completely grounded a football. I texted Brooke because I didn't catch it live. I texted Brooke. I go, did they really boo him? She goes, yeah, it was one of the worst passes I've ever seen in my life of watching football. I'm like, all right, fair enough. But Russell Wilson eventually settled down. And going back to the start of the conversation with Duke and Florida State, all you got to do is wait for the 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers to do some dumb stuff because he still thinks he has it. He doesn't. I got my guy back. I got Devontae Adams, who dropped some more balls. Not the answer. We could have told you that. He threw a back-breaking pick that put Pittsburgh back in this game. And then the rest is history. And of course, Aaron Rodgers he's at the press conference, basically absolving himself of any blame. Okay, fine, whatever. But it's getting away from him. But that was the bowl game last night. 2 quarterbacks that nobody really likes anymore. But you got to play it anyway because your franchises insist on you. I'll say this about Russell Wilson. My last point on this game about Russell Wilson and the conversations that were had between Justin Fields and Russell and what is Mike Tomlin doing and everything else. Last week I said the one key difference between Justin Fields and Russell Wilson is the fact that Justin Fields can still run and Russell Wilson can't anymore. But the one thing that I saw last night that Justin Fields cannot do consistently is Russ still throws a pretty ball, man. He still has that in him to throw a pretty ball. And if they feel like that gives them a better chance in terms of a ceiling with Russell Wilson, Mike Tomlin, so be it. I mean, they're a playoff team because they've been a playoff team with some really crappy quarterbacks. I guess they're just looking to see if Russell has a little bit of that magic still when it comes to throwing the ball to air it out. And we saw a little bit of that last night.
All right, well, I'm going to defend Aaron Rodgers here for a second.
Okay, go ahead.
The interception when it was 16-15 literally bounced off of Garrett Wilson's chest. It was actually an unbelievable throw. The third quarter of that football game was actually entertaining. Also, I want to go back to when I said when the Broncos were done with Russell Wilson, I said there was only one coach who could save his career. And that one coach, again, proving himself to be Mike Tomlin. That was a season high in points for the Steelers. Yes, despite the slow start, their offense found some life. I thought Russ did add a little bit of juice. Now there was some luck involved in some of these plays.
But that's Russ.
That is also
that's what you get with Russell Wilson, man.
So
he wills it into existence. There is no luck with Russell Wilson. It's all about process.
Sure.
He had a danger witch. He's feeling a little dangerous last night, Joe.
But I'll say this about the Jets. I think they do have a run in them.
No, they don't.
I think they do.
They don't. Why? Why do you think that way? Watch Aaron Rodgers, man.
I know.
They don't have a run in them because they have Aaron Rodgers as their quarterback, and Aaron doesn't understand. When he gets pressure, this is where we're at right now. Because it's not like the Jets have a good offensive line. When Aaron Rodgers deals with pressure, he is not the same nimble dude he was 5 years ago. And you can tell that it starts to get away from him in that situation. That's why there is no run in him. He keeps throwing picks. He keeps throwing back-breaking picks.
The 4 losses that they've had are to 4 playoff teams.
And so, how did they lose those games?
Right, but this is the first one with Adams, which moves your whole hierarchy down. You know who was actually really good last night for the first time pretty much all year? Breece Hall.
Okay.
So there was a reason Breece Hall had a really good, and most of it was in the passing game, but there's a reason he had a really good game because all of a sudden defenses aren't paying every attention to you.
Yeah.
You know, again, the pick that he threw when it's a 1-point game was an unbelievable throw, 20 yards down the field between 2 defenders that hit their alleged number 1 receiver between the numbers, bounces up in the air and goes right to the Steelers, who essentially return it for a touchdown. You can't put that on Aaron Rodgers. I would say this: they finally signed Reddick. He finally came in.
Yeah,
I think their defense will be better. Their schedule does relent, and I think Adams, as long as he's out there, adds a different element. It doesn't mean they're going to go back to hooking up and making everybody look stupid. I get that part of it, but there's a completely different element there. And at 2-5, they're not that far off, especially when you start looking around the rest of the AFC at the wild card picture. Just saying, I wouldn't bury him yet.
I will.
Okay.
From miserable to who's having more fun than the Lions right now?
No one.
Nobody. Oh, look, I get what you're saying about the Chiefs. The Chiefs are inevitable. It's almost not fun to watch the Chiefs.
It's not.
It's kind of weird. It's not fun to watch the Chiefs. But you know who is absolutely fun to watch? The Lions. The Lions continue to have fun. The Lions continue to be excellent. And hey, look, you brought up Minnesota and their defense and things like that. And I think some people were wondering if the bloom fell off the rose for Sam Darnold. And I'm not saying that Sam Darnold was perfect in this game, but I'm not, of what I watched from that game, I'm not coming away from that game thinking, well, clearly Minnesota's frauds now that they're no longer unbeaten. I think to me, that was more of a, dude, Detroit and Jared Goff and this thing keeps going, and Dan Campbell, who was a laughingstock for the whole kneecaps thing. Again, that is infectious after a while. And I watched Detroit play and I just think to myself, man, ain't nobody having more fun than that team. And finally, the team might be having more fun, but I challenge you to find me a player who enjoyed himself more than Saquon Barkley.
Oh, yeah.
With the Eagles and the Giants.
It was a good day for him.
Mind you, we're still not sold on Nick Sirianni and the Eagles, who have won 2 in a row. Still not sold. I mean, the guy's a little on the weird, on the weird side, right? But 176 yards, 13 yards shy of a career high against his old team, the Giants, which, if I saw clips from that game correctly, there was a lot of green up in MetLife Stadium. And not Jets green.
No.
It wasn't Jets fans just checking out the game. Eagles fans were out full force.
Giants fans are broken, man. They're broken.
New York football's broken in general. But you know what? The Yankees, right? Got the Yankees at least.
Cures a lot of ills. I'm having bad 81 vibes, though, for this one.
What do you mean?
The Yankees went to the World Series in 81, lost to the Dodgers, and then didn't make the World Series again for 15 years.
I see.
This one just feels like...
Okay.
The Dodgers have been dicking around all year long. Hence, go look at all of my gambling losses on the Dodgers all year long.
Uh-huh.
And now all of a sudden they're like, no, remember when Mookie Betts was awesome? Oh, yeah, he's awesome. Remember Shohei Ohtani, is the best player in baseball?
He's pretty good.
Yeah, he's pretty good, too.
He's pretty good.
Oh, but your pitching sucks. It doesn't matter.
Not the point.
We're going to score 12 runs. It doesn't matter.
Not the point. Big thanks to Roback. Check them out online at roback.com, RHOBACK.com. Use that promo code OG20 to save 20% off your order. I know that you've been cooking a possible polo idea. I sent you a bunch of assets.
Yeah, we have a lot of ideas that are in the hopper with our friends at Roback.
Okay. Just going to leave it at that.
Yeah. No, we're working on a hoodie. The hoodie will either be available for our birthday.
Okay.
Or the OG tailgate 12/15. It depends on what you're thinking.
I mean, selling a hoodie in May is about as ridiculous as selling a hoodie in August.
Okay, let's do 12/15 then.
But
we'll do a limited run.
Yeah, if it's a limited run and we can get it by December 15th, then I'm in, man.
Yeah, plenty of time for that.
Am I in town December 15th?
I hope so.
When is December 15th?
It's a Saturday in December.
Hold on.
It's kind of, I think, the first day of the playoff.
Let me see. I might let me pull up my league apps, which is my least favorite app these days. That's a Sunday, right?
If you say
December 15th. I might be coming back from Charleston that day. But then again, the Stingrays,
5 o'clock Sunday game at Lenovo.
Lenovo. Yeah, I might be able to make it to that game because I don't know if the Charleston Stingrays are going to be able to host us. Apparently, they're having ice time problems, so just something to keep an eye on. Big thanks to where am I?
Build it out.
I'm building it out. Where am I? Two Roosters. Kelly wants to be part of the Secret Pie of the Month Club.
Did you sign up?
We didn't when we went last week.
Okay.
We're just gonna have to go back.
I mean, it's a secret, so
that's whatever.
Don't tell anybody.
Our guy Aaron showed me like 2 gigantic tubs of whatever he was getting this past weekend in Cary.
Ooh,
you saw the photo. Actually, it's on my old phone, so I can't do it. My messages didn't transfer over. Trust me, I'm having problems.
I love that, man.
I'm having problems.
I love that fresh slate.
But anyway, you will absolutely love everything at Two Roosters. So check them out online, tworoosters.com. When the Canes are back from their usual October trek,
the Oktoberfest,
check out the Slavin Sunday.
Yes.
We talked to Jacob Slavin a little bit last week about it.
We have. He's very excited about those Heath bar crunches.
But what he said was true. He's like, you didn't want to overdo it with the Heath because it can't be overpowering. So it's just enough to give you the flavor of the Heath. Yeah. So that's all at Two Roosters with now 3 locations in the building. They got their normal stall. They got a cart outside section 110 and then one on the 3rd floor. Butcher's Market bringing you Ovies and Giglio from the jump. Big shout out to Butcher's Market. They bring you the OG mailbag as well. Check them out at thebutchersmarkets.com. May I suggest, if you go to Two Roosters over in the Lake Boone Shopping Plaza area, go over to the Butcher's Market that's over there as well. Got outdoor seating. We are in peak sit outside mode. and they got great sandwiches. So go do that at the Butcher's Market.
Things I can relate to. They opened up the Lake Boone location. It was a work in progress.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
There was construction in the parking lot. We didn't really quite know what was going on over there, other than they had unbelievable meats and lunches and sandwiches and everything else, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, now all of that construction's done. And you can see all of that outdoor seating, and you can get all of that same great food and just sit there and enjoy the best steak and cheese in the Triangle.
Big thanks to our friends at Nature's Relief Hemp Store. You can check them out at naturesreliefhempstore.com.
919-444-2211. Call the OG Sports phone and curse or don't.
Do our work for our corporate champions for us.
You're sitting here wondering, why the hell did you just play the sports phone jingle? A, it's a hit. B, this is why.
Hey guys, calling Monday morning after reflecting on the Panthers game, and just a warning, I'm about to use profanity because I care for the children, so warning, spoiler alert, profanity. But holy moly. At least there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Oh shit. We're in a well. Bye, guys.
So, if you're like that as a Panthers fan, watching that horrendous pile of crap, well, there's one way to make it more entertaining. Go to naturesreliefhempstore.com. RELEAF hempstore.com. Get yourself a gummy, melt into the couch while the Panthers melt on the football field. That's what I can recommend to you.
And tell me something good. Panthers still have their first round pick.
Tell me something good.
Hey, I watched it. Oh, man, they're terrible. But tell me something good. Buddy, was I feeling it from head to toe. Head to toe watch the Panthers.
That's why we're OG tailgating on 12/15. It's a corporate outing for Jennifer and the Nature's Relief crew.
Should be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Should be a lot
A lot of them are hockey newbies, too. Like,
man.
They're excited. They're pumped up.
Awesome. So we are officially entering into folks getting fired in college football season.
Yeah, seemingly ahead of schedule or a different schedule.
I think we're headed towards a different schedule, which we'll get to here in a second. For our purposes, Mike Houston was let go by East Carolina over the weekend. They lose to Army. It is what it is. When they made the decision to not move on from Mike Houston after the loss to Charlotte, mind you, these are losses to Charlotte and to App State this year, and a very critical year for Mike Houston. When you lose to Charlotte, that is automatic qualification in an already embattled season for you to go, sorry, man, it ain't working out for you here. But they kept with him. And I thought maybe, to your point, the changes in the college football hiring cycle because of the college football playoff might lead to some different firing cycles in the middle of the season, right?
Yeah.
So ECU decided, we're done. Okay. We've seen some, I think there was somebody else who got relieved of their duties off the top of my head. I can't remember.
Oklahoma offensive coordinator.
Well, yeah, I mentioned Seth Luttrell, but there was another head coach who got fired. Or was told we're not coming back. Or maybe I misread that. But regardless, that's neither here nor there. This is about ECU. So there's two conversations here with ECU. One, it's what does ECU want to be in this day and age of college football? We talked to Holton Ehlers about this earlier in the season, and I'd be curious to get Holton's thoughts on this later in the week. In that ECU has to adapt to the way college football works today if they're going to find themselves back into what we know ECU football to be, a proud program that cannot be taken lightly, right? And there's been some growing pains to go along with that. Can they get that resolved in a new direction? I don't know the answer to that. The second question is, all right, you decide what you want to be. Well, now you got to go out and hire them. I'm going to be really curious to see how the hiring cycle plays out with the college football playoff. Because, as we know, I mentioned last week, the playoff is going to be more like the NFL in that it's about attrition, who can survive. You don't have that full month off between your conference championship games and the college football playoff itself. Now this also ties into what you do with assistants and who are going to be tied to potentially multiple games throughout the month of December and early January. So that, I think, also plays into what's going on. And the other thing that also plays out here, too, is that you're seeing some really weird results this season that give ECU at least hope to turn things around pretty quick. look at what's happened in Indiana, right? Look at what's happened in Army and Navy, for heaven's sake.
It's kind of a stinger that you mentioned Indiana.
Yeah.
Because ECU went and hired James Madison's coach.
Mm-hmm.
That was Mike Houston.
Mm-hmm.
Kurt Cignetti ends up following him at James Madison and then now in Indiana. And it just goes to show you that it's a fickle process, right?
Yeah.
Like Kurt Cignetti, a lot of people are going to figure out the Indiana story. He bought 23 players with him from James Madison to Indiana.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the opposite of what Manny Diaz obviously did, or even Mike Elko.
Mike Elko, or
Went
even
Texas A&M, didn't really bring anybody from Duke.
or Deion Sanders, who just cleared house,
Sure.
right? And he brought some critical players in Shedeur Sanders, and obviously bringing on
from
Travis
Texas,
Hunter,
sure.
right? But it wasn't like what we saw with Indiana, which is
No.
basically JMU light,
Correct.
or what we saw with Mike Young at Virginia Tech, which is easier to do.
And in hoops, because there's fewer players.
He essentially brought Wofford with him.
It's the same
right?
premise.
But anyway,
I'll stand by this. Mike Houston's a good football coach. And I understand what was working against him this year in particular. He was losing on a double front. He was 0-7 in his tenure against teams in the state of North Carolina. And that includes the losses to App State and Charlotte. You can't lose to Charlotte the way that they did.
Mm-hmm.
Army on Saturday, they're down 31-0. There's no reason to be down 31-0 to Charlotte. To Army. No reason whatsoever. I think part of Mike's problem, though, also goes back to the way that they lost the App State game. And it also goes back to the way that they lost the Liberty game. Liberty, as we talked about at the beginning of the season, is one of the group of 5 favorites to make the college football playoff. Well, ECU went to Liberty a couple weeks ago. They're up 17-7. That's a game you have to win.
Mm-hmm.
It's a game you have to find a way to win. Instead, they get completely boat raced in the second half of that football game and end up losing 35-24. Those are the kind of games you can't lose. So he was losing on 2 fronts, right? Like, you're not competitive with the App States and Liberties, who are these group of 5 powers, if you will. And then you're not competitive in state with Charlotte and App State. Never mind, the loss to NC State. In many ways, he is like Dave Doran in the sense that his best result may have been the loss to NC State, right? Like, much like Dave's loss to that Clemson juggernaut in 2016, you can still make an argument is the best game his team has ever played. One of his teams has ever played. It does get me, though, to this idea with ECU, because we've talked about, like, is ECU now the one serious person in the room in the state of North Carolina that's like, you know what we're not going to put up with? Losing. We're firing our coach. Hello, UNC.
There's a couple.
Like, the one thing that you're not serious about is getting rid of a guy past the expiration date.
Okay. So there's a couple ways to go about this. I guess I would ask you a question in response to that. What does firing a coach in the middle of the season, in college football in particular, accomplish? Because you're not going to go out and hire. It's not like there's a Jim Harbaugh out there waiting for you to come in. I mean, was Butch Davis going to come out of retirement and coach ECU? Now that'd be the hell of a thing, man. I mean, I'd be all about that. Don't get me wrong. So, especially in this day and age. So what does it accomplish firing Mike Houston now?
Well, you can't lose the games in the way that they did. The Charlotte game, getting blown out by Charlotte, and then starting 31-0 at Army, you're indicating to the world that you have lost the team. So once you've lost the team, they are 3-4. Joe.
Okay.
I mean, there is still something for ECU to be accomplished.
Fair,
right?
Now that gets to the second part.
I'm not saying that as like an elitist. NC State would certainly sign up for 7-5 this year.
Sure.
Carolina would certainly sign up for 7-5 this year.
I get that. All right. So there's that. Got that part. Then we get to the second. Then we get to the other aspect of this. And it's something that is very, it's a foreign concept. And the only real true experiment that we have in the modern era of college football is happening in Raleigh with Dave Doran. In that we don't really see coaches last past 5 to 6 years around here.
Right.
On average, you will see a coach for a variety of reasons not stick around. Either they leave, because they got a better job.
That's super rare. That's happened twice in my lifetime.
Super rare.
In my coverage time.
Or you get fired because they're done with you after 5 to 6 years. Okay. Doran is the anomaly in that he has survived people who want his job, and he has decided or has had jobs slip through his fingers to leave. So he's back here. All right. So that is why NC State is so fascinating to me, is because they gave him an opportunity, whether they wanted to or not. He was given another opportunity to have another crack at it. And for the most part, I think it's been consistent. And it's, if you want to say paid off, I know some people will roll their eyes at me when I say it's paid off, but I think consistency in this area for football is really hard given the other history we have, right? I'm not saying this to advocate for Mike Houston. Okay. Like there are some games where you gotta go if you can't win these games.
Yeah.
App State and Charlotte are consistent in that regard. If Dave Doran,
to be clear, they were not competitive against Charlotte.
No.
It was 55-24.
If Dave Doran, if you flip the results of those UNC games in the last 3 to 4 years for Dave Doran, I am of the belief Dave Doran would have been fired. But those games have said you got to win those games. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So Houston couldn't win those games. So yeah, man, at that point, you got to go. You got to go in a different direction. It just didn't work out. But that also gets back to a central question of what are reasonable expectations for ECU football in the year of our Lord 2024?
In this era. I don't have an answer for you in this sense. I think Mike Houston, I still think is a good football coach, but he's a good football coach in the old model.
Mm-hmm.
And that is finding players, developing players, retaining players. Last year, when ECU went 2-10, they had a starter at Auburn on the offensive line, and they had a starter at Vanderbilt on the offensive line that had transferred out of their program. Do you think potentially those guys could have helped ECU?
So let me ask you this question. How is it that JMU can produce coaches that end up going other places like Mike Houston?
I was going to say, he won the national championship there.
Right? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So how does a program like, so I guess what I'm getting at here, a long-winded way of saying, how can ECU restart itself? How can they rebrand themselves? Because you can see it in other programs where they have a thing and it produces coach. Because that's the other thing about ECU. ECU in a lot of ways is how Miami football used to be back in the day, where success at your program meant you were going to lose your coach.
Sure.
And then you just get the next guy up because that is what you do. And I think somewhere along the lines, ECU lost that. And they had to get back to that.
First of all, I did not mind their hire of Mike Houston.
No,
I'm going to go back into the time machine in 2019 when they hired him. It was a good hire. ECU's brand, going back to Steve Logan, has always been offense, innovative on offense. They had both the Riley brothers.
Mm-hmm.
Could they get Garrett Riley to be their head coach? Probably.
Mm-hmm.
I would say probably. He's the offensive coordinator at Clemson right now. I would go and that would be my first call, would be to Garrett Riley. I think you have to get back to offense, high scoring. These are the things that in this era now, going back to that team, that 22 team, Keaton Mitchell was a good player.
Yeah.
He was also somebody nobody was on no one's radar. And ECU also has a history of that, finding running backs, receivers, quarterbacks who are on no one else's radar and who come to ECU and play with a chip on their shoulder. That, to me, is an ECU identity. So could they go and get Garrett Riley now? Makes a shit ton of money at Clemson. Not going to lie to you.
Yeah.
Is there someone else of that ilk who can potentially has a connection to ECU? Do I think that matters at this point? I do, because it is a very, I don't want to say parochial in a negative sense, but it's there is something to Greenville, America, and understanding Greenville, America. And we know what happens when they have coaches there who don't.
Yes.
John Thompson, Scotty Montgomery.
Yes.
So I do think there is something to that culture. It is going to be a matter of tapping into that. You say, what could their ceiling be? As I talked at the beginning of this year, there is absolutely no reason that ECU cannot be competitive as the Group of 5 champion and make the college football playoff. There's absolutely no reason.
Now, one last point about this that's completely fantasy driven. I get it, but somebody, I don't know who it is money wise, if they've got it or they've got an administrator, but I'd be calling Brett Yormark right now. Call Brett Yormark right now.
A ticket to the Big 12.
You need a ticket. That's the other thing. Right now, ECU's in a position where they need to get bailed out monetarily. And the only way to do that is you have to, and look, there's all sorts of what could have been for ECU had their football program not bottomed out for a bit there.
At the wrong times.
During critical conference realignment times, okay? But again, this is fantasy scenario, but I do truly believe this. Somebody has to convince Brett Yormark, who is the disruptor, to go into this market. You want in this market, right?
Here's a brand much like West Virginia, Virginia Tech, App State, these are brands that care. These are towns
Yes.
that care about football.
So somebody's got to call that commissioner right now and convince him, look, man, we can help you getting into this market because, as we know, this area with recruiting is already tricky as it is.
Yeah.
And you can tell Brett Yormark, hey, man, you can start getting in the same neighborhood with these other SEC and ACC programs. Let's go, right? Because what I'm getting at here is, because of the Big 12's television contract, it's not that dissimilar to what you see with Florida State and Central Florida, okay? Florida State's biggest freakout isn't what happened against Friday against Duke, right? Their biggest freakout is that Central freaking Florida is making money in a way that can make them competitive in the state of Florida. That's where they are freaking the hell out. So ECU, again, fantasy scenario, if they could convince the Big 12 to do the same thing for them that Central Florida has had happen for them in a very key southern market, it would help ECU. But again, that's a fantasy scenario.
I don't know how much of a fantasy it is, but we've seen discounted rates work at other conferences. If you're ECU, you would much rather be in a conference you have some history with Central Florida. You have history with Cincinnati. I mean, West Virginia, there were some great non-conference games earlier this century against them. So yeah, I mean, playing Arizona and Arizona State would suck, but you get over it.
Is Kalen DeBoer next in the coaching firing
that
cycle?
Circle of SEC has cost me so much money. I hesitate to wander into that, particularly since I went to Tennessee. Tennessee lost their best defender to an injury the week before. So I'm thinking, all right, Alabama's got this figured out. By the way, did you see who got the Oklahoma OC fired?
Yeah.
Them chickens.
I know.
Look out for them cocks.
We're going to talk to Eric Macklin, I think, this
Look
week
out for them cocks.
about that.
Yeah, I mean, Kalen DeBoer was always in a difficult situation. The miracle to me is he had them show up for the Georgia game in the way that he did.
Yeah.
Right? Which kind of spoiled it, because if you're Alabama, you much rather would have lost that game. Alabama's in this sense. I think Alabama is now in real danger of missing the college football playoff, which would have been unfathomable after they had beaten Georgia. But now they're in a situation where I actually don't think they're going to make the college football playoff. I think Tennessee or Texas A&M is going to get the fourth and final spot from the SEC.
Big thanks to Happy and Hale. We always take a hockey break.
Let's take a hockey break. Brought to you by Happy and Hale.
So the Carolina Hurricanes start the season off with performance against Tampa Bay. Then they have two dominating performances over some pretty decent teams. New Jersey at home. And then they start this road trip with a dominating performance over the Pittsburgh Penguins. They're back in action tomorrow. I know they lost to St. Louis. Was it yesterday or it was Saturday night? Saturday night. They had a lead, gave that one away. They're back in action tomorrow. We're going to talk to Mike Maniscalco. Now, if you're looking for a healthy option at Lenovo Center, well, Happy and Hale's got that for you. And when I say healthy, I don't mean something that lacks flavor or anything like that. I'm just talking about good, hearty, whole ingredients that you can find in the building that's not beige. Okay? So, big on this, like, get rid of the beige food business. Happy and Hale's got that for you. In fact, I went to Happy and Hale last week. I usually get the Bueno Bowl with the brown rice. I mixed it up, put the spring mix in there with the Bueno Bowl with the tomatillo dressing. Fantastic.
I know that Rod Brindamore was able to coach against and with his son now, Skylar, in the NHL. It still has to blow his mind, as it does every time I see the name, that Kasperi Kapanen is the one who scored the game-winning goal for St. Louis.
I know.
If you were ever in, and you were, if you were ever in the Hurricanes locker room between 99 and 05, first of all, Sammy Kapanen was like 5'6", 5'7". Kasperi was literally a stamp of him. And I have never seen Kasperi on without skates on.
Yeah.
He was always at practice on skates. I'm talking the kid was 3, 2, 3,
it's the
4 years old.
It's the most adorable thing you'll ever see.
And it was like, here's Kasperi.
Yeah.
Here's Sammy. Like, I'm telling you, you said the nesting dolls before. It blows my mind just seeing the kid's name. I'm sure for Rod, who was in the locker room, and Sam, everyone. You cannot. Well, I think it was one person. Maybe it was David Tanabe who didn't like him. But with the exception of David Tanabe, who had the unfortunate nickname of the Knobber, right? There was no one disliked Sammy Kapanen. Like this is like, like Mr. Rogers is like disliking Sammy Kapanen.
I saw R.I.P. Chopper Harrison, the old radio DJ, morning DJ, who used to do PA work at the building, once slapped Sammy Kapanen on the ass coming out of the shower and said, "Good game, Sammy." And Sammy, rather than turning around and saying, "Who the hell are you?" just went, "Okay." So incredibly nice man.
Yeah.
Incredibly nice man. Anyway, where do we get? Okay. Oh, yeah. Happy and Hill. Check them out. Download the app today. Big thanks to our friends over at O2 Fitness Clubs. Check out o2fitnessclubs.com.
O2 Fitness, so much more than a gym.
Sammy Kapanen is a guy who never skipped leg day.
No, he did not.
Dude had the biggest thighs I've ever seen.
No, he did not. Maybe you're looking to get swole on the thighs. I'll tell you what, O2 Fitness has come through in the clutch for my 13-year-old. We go over, they have locations all across the triangle.
Yes.
But our home base is the Seaboard location. Great staff. They had fun over Halloween or leading up to Halloween where they were trying to crush. I bet Sammy Kapanen can crush a pumpkin with his thighs.
Easily.
They were trying to do it. Some guys couldn't do it. But anyway, neither here nor there. Jacob's gains have started to get the attention of other people going, "Oh, Jacob's looking a little bit like swole now." I'm like, right, because he's been working on that upper body strength, never skipping leg day 2 to get faster at skating. It's paying off. So you're looking for that payoff, whether it's just to feel better about yourself, it's all at O2 Fitness Clubs. O2fitnessclubs.com. Renew Physiotherapy can help you out. It can help Joe out. And when I was at Happy and Hill over in North Hills, I saw the Loop Nutrition with the QR code. They can help you out, paired together, all together, to make sure that you get a total body transformation.
7 locations in the triangle, including one in Durham and Chapel Hill. So check them out, O2 Fitness.
Big thanks to Mosquito Authority and Pest Authority. You can check them out online at bugsbite.com. Bundle and save. Take care of the outside of your house. Take care of the inside of your house with Pest Authority. And it goes beyond just spraying. You got moisture problems. You got areas of concern. They can address that. All it takes is a simple visit to bugsbite.com. Also, big thanks to Breeze Through. Check out breezethrough.com. There are tailgating opportunities abound. All you got to do, first come, first serve. You pay $20. They got the food truck there. You can walk from the beer cave over to the building. It's a good time. And who knows, maybe we'll drop by there ahead of our 12:15 tailgate to get some goodies as well.
Oh, there's no doubt. All of our tailgating needs, we always go to Breeze Through right there across from the L.
So again, breezethrough.com. All right, let's get out of here on some Hey Joe questions, shall we? Let's see. Where was my... here we go. This is from our guy up in Virginia talking about, I believe this is about Tony Bennett, who retired on Friday.
Hey, guys. This is Jim Nansen and Rod Brendamore's friend in Virginia. Hey, I want to give you guys props for giving Tony Bennett his due on Friday's mailbag. As a UVA fan, sometimes it's tough hearing the stuff about him, and I know Giglio's not afraid to do it, but hey, I don't pay attention to it. Now, I have tried to get a couple of my UVA buddies to listen to it, and it seems like inevitably the podcast they listen to, Giglio's talking about the grounds or some shit like that. And they're like, why the hell do you listen to that? I was like, well, I don't pay any attention to that. I mean, everybody has their own likes and dislikes. But plus I like keeping up with the other schools and the Hurricanes because I'm a big Hurricanes fan. But anyway, of course, now I'm calling on Friday. I'm sure Monday's show, Giglio will be shitting on him again, but I don't care. Anyway, I love the podcast. Oh, and to all the New York Rangers fans, go fuck yourselves.
I'll be up in the Vinton area in a couple of weeks, actually. Regardless. Yeah, look, give Tony Bennett his flowers, man. It's that simple. And I addressed this on ACC Panic Room yesterday. The only issue that I've had from when we found out Tony Bennett was retiring to what we see today is the framing around Tony Bennett and the retirement, right? Give him his flowers, his ACC success, his national championship in 2019, all that kind of stuff. What I am really starting to have a hard time with is the woe is me bullshit about, well, with the game today, guys like Tony Bennett, it's hard for him to accomplish that. Look, I give Tony credit that he decided to look at the landscape. He can't do it the way that he wants to do it. And I know it sounds almost like I get annoyed at this when I see this on social media where it's like there's this one thing and you got to go in the complete opposite direction. It's like nobody stops and asks themselves, well, how was he able to do it the way that he did it? Well, it happened with guys not getting paid. Okay. Like it was a completely different way of doing it. So I don't like the framing around it as though you dismiss the idea that new up and coming coaches will be able to have success with the way college basketball and college athletics is going right now. And I give Tony a lot of credit for getting out of the way when he decided it was time to get out of the way and let somebody else run this thing. Cool. I just don't like the framing of what happens with these coaches when they just do the woe is me, kind of like, oh man, it's just not what it used to be.
This is one of your hills that goes back to John Beilein fleeing for the NBA.
Yes.
Back in what year was that?
Oh, it was several years ago. And everybody started like wringing their hands of like, what does this mean for college basketball? It doesn't mean shit for college basketball. I'm sorry. It just means, fine, you can't do it this way. Somebody else will find a way to do it. That's the evolution of coaching, which is why I will always, anytime there's an argument about Mike Krzyzewski, and yes, Carolina fans can happily dunk on Mike Krzyzewski with the way his career ended at the hands of North Carolina. But Mike Krzyzewski, while he did lament the state of college athletics, he was looking for ways to improve it and get with the program, which is what exactly he did. And when he won 5 different national championships, 5 freaking different ways, okay? 5 different ways, different teams, all that fun stuff. The point is he evolved.
One of them repeated. So
yeah, there was the repeat.
There you go.
But it was a different era of college basketball where you could do something like that. Okay.
Oh yeah.
That's all I'm saying. And again, I'm going to be really, really clear about this. This is not about Tony. This is about the framing around this kind of stuff where like this framing happened with Roy Williams and Mike Krzyzewski too, where they act like these guys are going to coach forever. No, they're not. Roy and Kay were old. Okay.
Yeah. I'll give Tony credit spelling it out the way that he did in his press conference, saying specifically, I took that as him acknowledging I can't change and I don't want to change. And that's not how I don't think I'm going to be successful. I don't think I have the energy to change and be successful.
Totally on board with that.
And he's a super religious guy. He has a different calling in life, which I'm sure he'll end up pursuing in his retirement.
It won't be TV?
No.
I'm with you on that. He's not going the Jay Wright route.
But getting back to the caller about like my complicated relationship with Virginia, if you will. I make no bones that I do not like Virginia. I respect what Tony did, but once he won that championship and once he got to that level of being the number 1 overall seed and winning the ACC, it takes away from when you say Dean Smith, Mike Krzyzewski, Roy Williams. We still don't know. We're still processing. We are what those 3 guys really did.
Yeah.
Because Mike followed Dean in the area and you're like, oh, well, just another one will come along. And then sure as shit, here comes Roy and you're Carolina. You're like, oh, we're just going to grow these Hall of Fame coaches on trees. It'll never end. Right. And then you're Virginia, you win a championship, you dominate the ACC, quite frankly, in the way that they did. You think, oh, he's just like them. No, that's where I put my foot down with Virginia. Is they were acting like Tony was in that group with them.
I brought that up on Friday.
And that's the part that Virginia fans always had a problem with me because I was judging Virginia by that triangle standard. And yes, you could point to his record against Roy in the last 10 games. You could point to all of those regular season titles that he won, all while Mike was picked to win the regular season. But ultimately, those final 4 trips and the championships, you can't just have one. And I know what that accomplishment is. And I tried to frame that on Friday, which is how I gave him his flowers, by saying when he took over that Virginia program, it was one of the worst in the ACC. And he was very smart to do what he did the way that he did it. And I also think he's very smart to get out the way that he did. And I can't help and I can't resist. And I am who I am. I called Saban's retirement and he explained it like a Bond villain. I called Tony's last year, and then he explained it like a Bond villain. So for all the people who act like I don't know anything, I submit to you.
We'll get out here on this from Michael. Hey, Joe, can you talk about Bobby Bowden's stuff from Wallace Wade?
Oh, no.
I was like, okay.
This is getting us into Arnold Palmer.
Yeah. So this is former President Trump.
And Trump.
He's at a rally in Pennsylvania, and he decides to waste precious time. Well, he's been doing this at most of his rallies. I mean, he had a rally where he spent 40 minutes. He had a rally that is something I would do. It's like, hey, you guys want to hear some music? Right? And like, that's something I would do. It's like, hey, you guys want to hear some cool tracks? These are my favorites. I put them on a mixtape. So I guess at this rally, what was it, over the weekend, he decided to talk about Arnold Palmer's not his golf prowess, but apparently his other prowess.
But Arnold Palmer was all man. And I say that in all due respect to women, and I love women. But this is a guy that was all man. This man was strong and tough. And I refuse to say it, but when he took showers with the other pros, they came out of there, they said, oh my God, that's unbelievable.
Sounds like a sitcom laugh track. That guy has bent my brain. Was that real?
That was real.
Are we sure?
919-444-2211. Call the OG Sports phone and curse or don't.
If I was still doing radio, I would go on right now and say, call the sports phone, 919-444-2211. Tell us the last time you were impressed by another man's dick. Call right now. Because that's all that was. And then, like the NFL locker room stuff, like that's probably why they don't want people in the locker room anymore. The meat peepers. Turns out former President Trump, meat peeper. Who knew? Call sports phone. When was the last time you saw one that you went, damn?
Oh, dear.
In person. Porn doesn't count. You just went, damn. When's the last time?
You're just begging people to text that picture of the guy at the edge of the bed.
No.
Please don't do that.
And look, the Bobby Bowden story, I've told it multiple times. The Bobby Bowden story wasn't me as a young sports radio guy trying to track him down for an ESPN radio hit. That was not what that was about. It wasn't about like, my God, look at how hung Bobby Bowden is. It was just more of the comical story of here's this kindly old man who's a Hall of Famer just coming back and saying, yeah, I'm not going to be able to do this radio hit. And he waddled off. That's all that story was. Yes, I've seen Bobby Bowden naked. I'm not going to do a rally around it. Anyway, let's get a wrap. I can't find a better way to close today's show than that. You waited 90 minutes.
Thank you, children.
You waited 90 minutes. You had ample time. Parents who listen to this podcast, you had ample time to eject before we got to that. Anyway, we'll see you tomorrow.